Elaine Konkel, September 9th, 1936 to July 25th, 2020. She passed away peacefully on Saturday, July 25th at the age of 83 years. Born in Milwaukee on September 9th, 1936, Elaine was welcomed by parents Jane and Anthony. And her older sister Mary. She grew up in Milwaukee, and at age 11, she became a big sister herself to Kathleen. Elaine graduated from Notre Dame High School in 1954 and worked as a long-distance telephone operator until she married the love of her life, Jim, in 1958. Elaine and Jim met at a school dance and immediately knew that this was the start of a lifelong relationship. Jim joined the Air Force soon after graduating and was sent overseas. The distance did not hinder their love, however, and Elaine and Jim faithfully wrote letters to each other for almost 2 years. When Jim returned to Wisconsin on leave in April of 1958, the pair immediately married and began their 62 years together. The newlyweds relocated to Kansas City, Missouri as part of Jim's Air Force duties. It was there that they welcomed their first son, Michael. After Jim was discharged from the Air Force, the young family returned to southeastern Wisconsin, where they were blessed with 2 more sons, Mark and Joe. They built a wonderful little home in the town of Raymond in Racine County and went on to welcome their youngest son, Matthew. Elaine had her hands full with 4 young boys, but always remained a loving and attentive wife and mother. The family enjoyed many camping trips when the boys were young, including a 2-week stint out to Yellowstone National Park. When her youngest son started school, Elaine was also able to begin a new career path. She used her natural talents of patience, caring, and empathy, working as an aide for special needs children in the town of Raymond School District. In their 6 decades together, Elaine and Jim loved to travel. They purchased a camping van, which took them all over the country, including all of the way to Alaska. One of their favorite trips was to North Carolina in 2003 for the commemoration of the Wright brothers' first flight. Other beloved vacations included the Florida Keys, Prince Edward Island, Death Valley, and the Grand Canyon. Throughout her 83 years on Earth, Elaine never stopped trying to grow and learn. She became a fount of wisdom for the younger generations in her family. She was always patient, always kind, always reliable, and she loved every member of her family dearly. And I just wanted to say a few more things about my grandma. I was really struggling this morning. I waited until this morning to try to write something about her because I didn't know where to begin and to say how special she was to me. So then I thought I would just begin at the beginning and talk about when I was a kid, and my grandma was a wonderful grandma, always. We loved going to her house. We would go over there for sleepovers, and we would always sleep on a pull-out couch in the living room, which was a lot of fun for little girls. And she had a great tree swing in the backyard that we would play on. She had a willow tree in her front yard. My cousin and I were just talking about, she had this willow tree, and we would grab onto it like Tarzan and swing across the ditch in her front yard. She always gave us good food when we were there. We would watch movies, we would play games, go for walks, and it just always felt loving and safe and just like a second home. When I was 9, she took me to Maine, 9 or 10, because even back then, ever since I knew about Maine being a state, I wanted to go to Maine, and she was able to make that happen. I rode on a plane for my first time. I swam in the ocean. We went out to eat. We went to parks. We went to see all kinds of scenery. We went shopping. I'm so glad to have that memory with her. It felt like a really special one-on-one time with my grandma. And as I got older and grew into an adult, our relationship evolved as well, where I was able to talk to her adult to adult. And that was something even when we were kids. She treated us like we mattered and we were grown up. She never talked to us like kids. She never dismissed us or talked like we didn't matter. Our feelings and thoughts always mattered, and that continued and grew when I got to be an adult. She was there through any bad time I had and all the good times. She was there through my parents' divorce and changing of different schools and going to France when I studied abroad and when I graduated school, and there through a lot of different boyfriends and breakups and finding new people. And she was so excited when I met Connor a year and a half ago, and I told her about him, and she said, well, I want to meet him. And so then we started to go over there weekly for dinner, and she loved him so much too. And that was a special time to have with her, to go over there once a week and we talk and we played games and eat dinner, and she was just always so happy, so thrilled that we were there. And when I was 23 and I graduated college and I moved back home, and I was going to get a job in a different city, so I was going to move, and things were very hard at home because of that. And I called up my grandma and I said, I need someone to talk to, can I come over? And I started to go over there once a week for dinner when I was 23. And we would have dinner, and then she would send my grandpa away, and then she and I would just talk. And I've, since I was a young teenager, I've really struggled with depression and anxiety. And I would just talk openly with her about those struggles and about how things were at home and how things were with my relationship at the time. And she never dismissed me. She never said anything bad. She just listened to me talk, and she would share her own stories back. She would talk about her grandmother, who she loved very much, and she talked about her mother, who she also really loved, but had a lot of struggles in her life. And one time after discussing them, she had a Russian nesting doll, and she handed it to me, and she said, well, you know what this is? It's a doll, and it's got other dolls inside of it. And she said, you come from strong women, and you have the strength of all of these women inside of you. And my grandma always thought that I was strong. She always, even when I didn't believe it, even when it was really hard to think about that or recognize it, I know that she was always really proud of me. And I try to think about that every day, or if I'm having a bad time. And I could talk to my grandma about anything. I could tell her all the bad things, all the good things. Just talk to her about what I did that day, what I ate that day, and talk to her about things I was going through, just anything. I could just call her up or email her. I mean, literally anything. She knew things about me that no one else knows. And the only thing, and I'm sorry, but the only thing that I never got to talk to her about was what I'm supposed to do now without her. I don't know. I feel like I've lost my left arm, and I have to figure out how to live life without it now. This whole week, she was the only person I wanted to talk to. She was the only one. I thought about emailing her so many times. I just wanted to tell her how I'm feeling and just talk about it and get advice from her. She was really my best friend. And I feel really lucky that I had such a close relationship with her. And then I thought too about what she would say if she was here. And I think that she wouldn't tell us not to be sad. She would be okay with that. She would know. But she'd also tell us that we're gonna be okay, that we're stronger than we think we are. And we learned a lot from her in our time with her. And that we're gonna be okay. We have that strength that she taught us, and we have all of our inner strength. And I have to figure out how to be okay with that. That's all.
It's really, really difficult always to sum up a person's life. But when I was thinking about it this week, all of a sudden a story came to me that I think perfectly doesn't really sum up, but it gives a lot of insight into Mom. As most of you know, she had a rough childhood. She grew up in the late 1930s and early 40s. It was a different time then, and her parents were not the most happy of people and stuff. And so you're talking emotional abuse, physical abuse. You know, I mean, the kind of stuff that you see in movies. You know, not optimal. You know, by any stretch. And she carried the pain of those years with her for a long time. Probably I want to say until she was about 60 or so. You know, so the last 20 years of her life, finally she was sort of free of that kind of stuff. But it was a lifelong struggle. And when she was growing up, she did have a saving angel, a guardian angel. Her own grandma everybody lived close by, family back then and stuff, and so then she would go over to her grandma's house, and her grandma would say to her, I am going to pray for you that you meet and marry a good man, that you get into a good family. And grandma, oh yes, you know, when she was a little girl, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, and having to go back every day to the House of Horrors and stuff, you know, she held on to that promise. So then that's the background that you need to understand the story that I'm gonna tell here. So when I was growing up, we every year, Mom and her sister Marilyn, and probably Kathy at times too, we'd make a trek to a state fair every year, you know. Oh my gosh, and it was so much fun, you know. You'd see the animals and stuff. I mean, state fair, you know, and state fair, as any large gathering is, there's always 9 million cars in the parking lot. So you'd come in the morning. You'd come at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you wouldn't pick up your car until 10 in the evening. So you had to remember where your car was, because there were, you know, a million cars out there and stuff. And so then when I was young, I didn't understand this, but as I got a little bit older, I was 12, 13, 14, something like that, I'd get out of the car and I would triangulate. Okay, the car's right here by that landmark here, and it's across here from this landmark here and stuff, and that's where the car was, and then I could find my way out again, you know. So okay, so one particular state fair, it was late at night. It was 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we're going out to the car and stuff like that. And my mom and Marilyn were just convinced that we were going the wrong way. And I said, no. This is the way. This is the way. I am. You know, I triangulated. I couldn't say those words at that time and stuff and whatever. Are you sure that this is the right way? I don't want to get. No. Absolutely. Trust me. This is the right way. And I found the landmarks, and we triangulated up to the car, and I found where the car was. And Grandma, Mom, she started to cry just a little bit, and she caught herself, and she says words that I will never ever forget. She says, "You remind me of somebody that I married." And stuff, and so now, so if you understand the context of her having, you know, awful childhood, and her grandma praying for her, she got out of that, and she married a decent person and had a good life, and she obviously passed that life on to people like Rachel, and I'm sure she passed it on to other people too, everybody, you know. So it's that tells you about my mother. She made me feel good. She complimented my father, and she said to the universe, "Thank you so much for getting me out of my awful childhood and into a good life." And she did have a good life. Thank you. Anybody else want to speak at all? Matt, go ahead.
Thank you, Rachel, for reminding me of the willow tree. You probably knew that was something that we did as well.
Yeah.
swing on those branches, and it was a really sad day when we had to take that willow down. That was like losing a friend as well. And thanks, Mark, for giving the context of that story. Appreciate giving that background. Growing up, I would hear stories about other people's mothers, or see their mothers' behaviors, and it was so foreign to me and different because it was so different from how my mother was, and I couldn't comprehend it. Because my mother was nothing but kind and giving and considerate. So I had trouble relating to people who had not so favorable stories about their mother. One of my mother's greatest characteristics was always being positive and optimistic without fail. No matter how she felt, no matter the circumstances, she could always find the bright spot or the bright side of things. Even in the last conversation I had with her on the phone, she had been in and out of hospitals and the rehab center, and this was at the rehab center, and even in that conversation, she said, "I think I'm getting better. I think I'm going to be all right," because she always had that optimism. One quality that was passed down to me from my mother was her adherence to persistence. Growing up, she always made sure that I would never say I can't, but that I would always say I would try. And she always did. And I always do. I feel extremely privileged and lucky to have had Elaine as my mother. Not just because she was the one who raised me, but because I got to know her as a person.
Do you want me to turn the chair around 180 degrees too? Oh, okay. Got it. Okay.
Is it okay if I stand over here, Jim?
Sure.
Okay.
Good.
started on our second 62 years 2 years ago. So we've been married approximately 62 years, 3 months, 13 days, 6 hours. I think you would approve, Elaine, if I recycle the gift for you. The gift is the one I gave you 33 years ago at your 50th birthday party. I don't know that I can finish it. I'm going to hand it to Mark, and if I can, maybe he can. Dearest Elaine, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth, breadth, and height that my soul can reach, when feeling out of sight for the ends of being an ideal grace. I love thee to every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee with the love I seem to lose with my lost saint. I love thee with my heart, my soul, my tears, my laughter, my whole being. And if God so choose, I can only love you deeper after death. Thank you. And gosh, thank you all for help and coming. I guess one of my last things I can do for you, sweetheart, is I'll do this for you so you don't have to do this for me. Okay.
Anybody else at all?
I just want to say this week we're making arrangements, a funeral arrangement, something obviously, never done before ever. It made it more, you had to literally be in business mode. It made it more matter of fact. It was kind of upsetting to myself, I thought so, because it did become matter of fact. And today we're here celebrating her life, and I appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking care of the arrangements, Joe. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Marilyn, for getting the flowers. They're very pretty.
We have some butterfly milkweed when Elaine had her butterfly garden after her house. I'm sure a lot of people remember that too. And so if you want to plant something that'll grow and proud of you all, and glad we're here. If you want to plant something, the forest home said that they'd welcome a native plant, and so I'm going to myself. Right here. Sounds good. Worried about those cookies. I was confused, but yeah. Yeah, do you think here? Sure. We would like that in our backyard. That would be really nice.
I thought you would. I have a black thumb.
I don't think matching one would be.
Sometimes I have luck and sometimes I don't.
I can barely keep him alive. It's pretty bad.
Head up here.
Head there, I believe, but I don't know for sure.
Oh, is she
Vertical. This way.
vertical from here? Her feet are pointed down. So.
Oh, they are? So she can see this. Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't know if she's probably close to the center